John, the Greens are making big inroads nationally in politics. Newcastle was one of the earliest beachheads for the Greens in Australia. You've been in public life for how long would you say as a Greens council? Since 1991, is it? Alright. So I think in that time the Greens have established a number of more representatives. The party has grown in rank and file numbers substantially since then. Yet the two prominent candidates that the Greens stand in Newcastle as yourself and Keith Parsons, who are people with track records that some would say were obstructive, were not in tune with what the majority of the people are thinking. Is there some sort of problem with membership in the Greens that you're not encouraging people to join, that people aren't joining your party, that there's not renewal there?
Well, I wouldn't accept the premise of your question that we're obstructive. In fact, I'd definitely repudiate that part of it. But it is difficult in the Greens to get people to stand. That's certainly true. You know, Greens don't tend to be naturally ambitious. There is a reluctance to engage at that point. They're often activists and they're often very engaged in specific issues in the community. So, you know, the typical Greens member is a very active member of the community. But they often are very reluctant to take that next step into electoral politics. And I think we find that about Greens pretty much the world over. I think that they tend to be more activists than politicians.
And do you think you can win this election? Do you think you can win this?
Well, you set the odds, 15-1. I reckon 15-1's a pretty good bet, actually. I think we can win it, and it's within the realms of possibility. I certainly think those odds are about the odds that I'd say, but 15-1 chances of won Melbourne Cups before.
Greens in other seats in the Hunter Valley, James Ryan, how do you think he's going to go?
I think James is going to go great. He's a great councillor. Really a good indication of the kind of breed of Greens that have started to come through local government. There's 75 councils around New South Wales now. When I was elected in 1991, I was one of two. So we've grown pretty much at 20 every local government election. It's interesting that the top 4, maybe 5 people on the upper house ticket are all councillors. So that growth in local government at that community level is a very strong part of the Greens, and James has been a very strong part of that. He'll do well.
What sort of environmental issues do you find people raising with you as you do not get around?
Well, coal and climate change are the key ones, and that's where we really do make leadership.
That's your issue,
big part of
your issue here in Newcastle.
Oh, well, it's one of the key issues, yeah. I think public transport's another big one, privatisation's another big one. I've just been to an education forum, those kind of issues matter to us as well. But the key one, I guess, for the largest coal exporting port in the world, and the region that produces a lot of that coal, is the failure of governments to deal with that issue of climate change and the need for a transition away from coal, to start planning something. Look, one healthy sign is that there are other people in the community who are agreeing with us that you wouldn't necessarily expect. I noticed that the Hunter Chamber, the business chamber, has as one of its 10 points planning for a post-coal economy. Now, that's a healthy sign. There are signs that the Greens and the Hunter Business Chamber don't necessarily agree on everything, as I'm sure you know. The fact that they're actually talking about a post-coal economy is a very healthy sign.
Just on carbon tax, if we've got an environmental pollution authority that can already monitor the negative output of factories and power stations, why can't we monitor do the carbon tax through something like the EPA rather than create a whole new bureaucracy for it?
Well, of course, the carbon tax, I'm going to do that thing that somebody said before, is a federal issue. Barry O'Farrell, of course, is mainly a state issue. Barry O'Farrell and the coalition are campaigning against putting a levy on polluters, which is what the carbon tax really is, a levy on polluters, and instead the coalition wants to take the money to deal with climate change directly out of the pockets of taxpayers. Now, that is not going to produce a set of market circumstances that make it economically viable for the polluters to change what they're doing. And that's the issue. This issue of carbon tax is going to go on for a long time. It's going to need explanation. I can understand people feeling a bit confused about it. I think as time goes on and it's explained, people, it will click. It's a mechanism, a market mechanism that will allow signals to be sent through the market that will mean that the polluters will make different choices about what they're doing.